Hello, everyone. This is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover. I'm back with another movie review. I did this one on my channel a while back, but it's one that I really thought I could do better, and I love this movie a lot. So I really wanted to go and redo this video again to see if I can maybe do a better job than I did the first time. The movie I'm talking about is the 1973 horror film The Wicker Man, directed by Robin Hardy, written by Anthony Schaefer, and starring Edward Woodward, Britt Ekland, Diane Salento, Ingrid Pitt, and Christopher Lee. Now, this was a movie, honestly, I had heard of for many, many years, and it wasn't even until after I saw the movie Hot Fuzz that I was able to catch this movie on TV one night. And after I did, it's like I just really enjoyed this movie a lot. I really did. And this here is like I feel kind of disappointed because here on the Blu-ray here it says the final cut, but I think that there's still some footage missing because this cut runs 94 minutes, and I think there was a cut of the movie that ran like 99 to 100 minutes, so I think we're still losing some stuff. But as far as I know, this is probably about as good as we're ever going to get. So yeah, probably go ahead and stick with it. I keep the DVD though because the DVD and the Blu-ray have different bonus features, and like this one here has "Worshipping the Wicker Man" featurette, the music of the Wicker Man featurette, talks to people like Eli Roth and stuff, an interview with Robin Hardy, restoration comparison trailer. So, but yeah, anyway, so the story starts off. We have a sergeant named Neal Howie, and we find out that he's a very religious man, and that he's been given a task that actually I think one of the scenes that's missing is that he gets this letter asking if he can go find a young girl named Rowan Morrison on an island called Summer Isle, and so he takes off on his plane to go to the island to see if he can find her. And so he gets there, and at first the place really does give off a really weird vibe, and like he's trying to talk to people, and like he's asking if they've seen the girl, and a lot of them they're saying they haven't seen her, they don't know who she is, things like that. And so he's showing the pictures to him, and like, have you seen this girl? And none of them know who she is, and they're saying no, she doesn't belong to this island and stuff. So he goes and he starts looking around, and it turns out he goes to visit the mother named Mae Morrison, and so he's talking to her, and she's saying, yeah, that's not my daughter. And there's a little girl sitting there painting rabbits, and she's like, that's my daughter. And and so she goes and asks so Howie, he goes and asks the little girl, do you know this girl Rowan Morrison? And she's like, yeah, just I know her. She's a hare. She's a marsh hare and stuff. So I mean, he's getting all these kind of like really weird answers to his questions. Nobody ever gives him a straight answer to much of anything. Um, so it's like it's getting late and it becomes nightfall, and he decides he's going to go ahead and he's going to stay for the night. So there's basically kind of like a pub with like a room, for the night. And so he goes and talks to the landlord, and the landlord's like, yeah, you can go ahead and stay the night. And we get to probably my favorite female character in this movie easily, and that is the landlord's daughter, Willow, played by Britt Ekland here. And yeah, so then the villagers, you're gonna find out right away. Okay, pretty much from the beginning of the movie, you find out that it's a musical. That there are a lot of musical scenes, like when Willow, the character, is introduced. Everybody starts singing a song called "The Landlord's Daughter," and so they're singing the song, and everybody's kind of like, don't take it, don't worry about it. So he goes and he asks the people, I'm going to pass this picture around. I need to know if any of you seen this little girl. Her name's Rowan Morrison and things like that. So he passed the picture around, and everybody basically says they haven't seen her, and so he's asking if he can have a meal, and then he finds out that see, the thing is Summer Isle, they're known for their crops, and they're known especially for their apples and things, and so he asks if he can have one of the apples, and Willow here tells him no, there's no apples and stuff. And he's all like, "Wow, that's weird." Coming from an island that's known for the fruits and everything else that it that they raise and stuff. And so he goes out and he's looking around, and the one thing that he finds out is weird is there are a lot of people just having sex out in public. You're gonna find out too. There's quite a bit of eroticism in this movie. So he's going around and he's looking and seeing like people having sex out in public, and they're just not thinking anything of it. And so and he's seeing like a woman naked in a graveyard. She's at a headstone and she's weeping and stuff. So he goes upstairs and then he gets his key, to go to his room and stuff. Now, in the cut version of the movie, it cuts to a scene where Willow tries to seduce him with a musical number. But, in the final cut version, there's actually a different scene, and we're introduced to Christopher Lee's character a little bit earlier in the movie. Christopher Lee plays Lord Summerisle, and so he brings this young man to Willow. And basically, Willow is to sleep with this young man and basically let him bring him into manhood, as it were. And so he goes up there, and this song plays called Gentle Johnny, and while they're upstairs having sex and everything else, Christopher Lee is basically talking and kind of reciting this almost poetic monologue and things like that. And but Howie just kind of like shuts the whole thing out, decides it's none of his business, he's not going to bother with it, so he just decides he's going to go ahead and go to bed for the night. So he goes to bed and wakes up the next morning, and he goes out. Willow's out. She's like wiping down tables and stuff, and they chat for a minute. So he decides he's going to go and he's going to go check the schoolhouse, see if anything goes on there. So he goes to the schoolhouse and he asks the teacher if she knows anything about Rowan Morrison, which she says she doesn't. And he asks the students, do they know anything about her? They say they don't. And then he finds out, he kind of bullies his way around, which is kind of the thing about Howie. I'll get to that. He kind of bullies his way around, and then he sees that, the classroom ledger, and he sees that Rowan Morrison is actually a student there, and he's like, you're all despicable little liars, and tells the teacher, you're the biggest liar of all, and so the teacher, she's like, come on outside with me and we'll talk for a minute. And so they go outside and they're talking about it. And she explains to them, like, we believe that when the body dies, that, it returns to the earth, it returns to the air and the sea and, the water, the air, things like that. And, and we find out that, Howie's extremely Christian, he's extremely religious and things like that. And so he's pretty much offended by the fact that they're not, believing in the Christian religion. And so he goes and he looks in the graveyard, and he sees that even though there's like a headstone here, and he talks to the grave digger, and the grave digger is talking about how she has like a navel, her navel string is attached to her headstone, and it's like a religious thing. And how he's kind of really baffled by what's going on. They talk about that they're religious people and things like that. And so anyway, so he goes off and he decides he's going to go down to the kind of like the Hall of Records, and he's going to talk to them there, see if he can find out anything. So he gets to the Hall of Records, and we find out that the lady running the Hall of Records is Ingrid Pitt, the beautiful, gorgeous Polish model and actress. May she rest in peace. But so he goes in and he asks her, do you know anything about Rowan Morrison? And, can you give me any information? And so she's telling him, well, the thing is, before I can give you any kind of information, you have to talk to Lord Summerisle. And he's all like, I'll talk to him in due time. But for right now, if you don't give me any information, I'm going to basically tell him that I'm going to basically put it in my report that you didn't help, and that everything's going to be pretty much hell on you and stuff like that. So you better help me out here. And so she gives him the records and stuff like that, and he finds out that she was on the island and things like that. So he decides it's time to go see Christopher Lee's character. So hang on a second. Sorry, another picture of Britt Ekland here. So you could tell she's my favorite actress in this movie, obviously, for obvious reasons. Anyway, okay, so now Howie goes to Lord Summerisle, who's played by Christopher Lee, who gives easily, one of the best performances in his entire career in this movie. And, it's already been well known for anybody who's a fan of the movie that Lee worked on the movie as a passion project, that he didn't even take a fee. They couldn't afford his usual rate, but he just loved he loved the material, and he just loved the story and everything, and decided he wanted to do it. And so basically he did the movie for free. He doesn't have a very huge part in the movie, but when he's in there, he's definitely the star of the show. So Howie goes and he talks to Summer Isle, and so they talk and everything else, and basically it's revealed that Howie, who is a like I said, he's an extremely Christian person. He's a Christian cop and everything else. That he finds out he's on an island basically full of pagans, that they believe in the old Celtic pagan religion and everything else, and that that they believe that you have to make sacrifices, and you have to appease the gods and things like that, and that's what you do. And um, so basically Howie is super offended, and he thinks these people are just so immoral and things like that. And but he does ask if he can have permission to exhume Rowan Morrison's grave, which Summer Isle gives him permission. So he goes and he exhumes the grave, and then he finds the carcass of a rabbit in there. And so he goes back to Summer Isle and he tells him, like, look, I think this is there's some shit going on here, and I don't like it, and you guys better come clean and everything else. And so he's trying to put everything together. And at one point, he goes to the pharmacy where where they take pictures of their harvest every year, and it's revealed that the previous harvest, was terrible. The trees didn't bore any fruit or anything like that, so they didn't have any crops that year. So he starts putting together. He thinks that they sacrificed Rowan for the crops and everything else. So he goes back to Howie, he goes back to his room and everything. And then we get, what is easily the most sexiest erotic scene in the entire movie. So you have Willow here. Like I said, the scene in the cut version, the scene is earlier in the movie, but in the final cut, the scene is posted later in the film. But Willow, she does a seductive dance to try to entrance Howie and everything else. And she does this song, and she's she's nude and she's slapping her butt and things like that. And it's a very sexy, very erotic scene. Because the whole point is she's trying to tempt Howie into having sex with her, but he's able to resist. So the next morning she goes in and she's talking to him, and she tells him, I invited you. You could have come to see me last night. And he says, don't take it personally. It's just that I'm a Christian and I don't believe in it for marriage. And so he's still trying to figure out what's going on, and he's looking around. He's at one point he decides he's going to go back to the mainland, but he finds out that his plane has been basically sabotaged, so he can't go. So he's looking around the island, and he decides, if they're going to do a sacrifice, maybe he can stop it. So he's going basically doing like a house to house search. He's trying to see if he can find Rowan, and he's trying to see what all he can do to stop this whole thing. He goes to the mother and pleads with her, please don't let them sacrifice her. And the mother's like, you'll never understand, you'll never understand the true nature of sacrifice and all this. So he's doing his house to house search. And then we get this very beautiful shot of, he goes into one house and he walks into a room, and there's Ingrid Pitt nude in the bathtub, which is a very, very lovely image, I have to admit. So he's getting nowhere, and he decides that, so he's like, well, I'm going to go take a nap. And so Willow here and her father, they decide that they're going to do this thing, and that they're going to try to get him to sleep, basically cast a spell on him. And he wakes up, and, he sees what they call the hand of glory, which is basically a severed hand that's basically used as like a candle. And so he, puts it out. Then he goes and he knocks out the landlord, steals his costume. So he decides he's going to get into this festival here. And so he goes and he gets into the festival and stuff, and he kind of sees what they're doing and everything else. And finally it gets to the point where they talk. They're doing this one thing where everybody has to go through these swords and see if they get their head cut off or not. And they're doing all these other things, and you know, Summerisle there. He's, they got like kind of like big, barrels of like beer or something like that, and they're, sacrificing that to the sea and everything else. And so they finally decide it's time for the human sacrifice and everything. And so Howie, he sees Rowan Morrison about to be sacrificed, and so he goes and he knocks the people down and frees her and everything. And then they try to get away, only to find out that the whole thing has been a trap, and that Howie was lured in, and that the little girl Rowan was actually a part of it. And so he's baffled by the whole thing. And so Summerisle explains to him that basically they needed a great sacrifice because the crops did fail miserably, and they need like a better sacrifice and things. So so they're like, they decide that they're going to sacrifice Howie, and uh, you know, so they prepare him and everything else, and then you see the Wicker Man, this big Wicker Man made out of wood and things like that, and they got farm animals in there and stuff that they're put in there for a sacrifice and everything else. So they put Howie in there, and Howie is basically saying, I'm not pagan. I believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and everything. And so they're talking about basically like all these things that he is. He's a Christian, he's a virgin, he's a cop. All these things that he represents and everything else is actually what they consider the perfect sacrifice. And that he's the right kind of adult, that he would make a great sacrifice. And so he's trying. So Howie is like trying to get them to not sacrifice him. And even at one point he tells them, like maybe you ought to sacrifice Summerisle instead. But Christopher Lee tells him basically, no, this will work and everything else. Just go ahead and put him in there, and let's sacrifice him. So basically, the end of the movie, there's they're doing a big musical number. They put him into the Wicker Man, and they set it on fire, and ultimately the movie ends with the character of Sergeant Howie being burned alive and being sacrificed, and the Wicker Man toppling over, and that's pretty much where the movie ends. So yeah, so the I'm sorry, I should have said spoilers at the beginning, but this movie, this really knocked me for a loop. When I first saw it, I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was so good. I did not expect the movie to end like this. I expected something of a more upbeat ending. I didn't expect anything so down and bleak. But this movie is fantastic. I love this movie to death. Christopher Lee, like I said, gives one of his best performances. Edward Woodward, he's playing, the thing about Howie is, it's like you kind of feel sorry for him in the movie, but then you kind of don't, because, you feel sorry for him because of, the end that he meets at the end of the movie. But at the same time, though, too, it's like, he like I said, he kind of bullies his way around this island, and everybody's like trying to, explain to him, like, look, you don't have to be mean about things, but he just kind of goes in and shoves his way around. And I'm a cop, kind of acts that way. And I'm a cop, and I'm a Christian. I'm going to do whatever I want. To hell with you and stuff like that. You know, it's like I consider myself something of a Christian, not a very good one, but something of a Christian. But at the same time, though, too, I understand there are other people of other religions, and people who have no religion at all. So it's all like, and it's not my job to go forcing that down other people's throats, So, but that's what Howie does, He goes along, and they say, that they're pagans and they believe a certain thing, and so he's like, no, you need to believe in the Christian faith and everything else, which is something I would never do, but that's just me. Anyway, though, we're not going to sit here and get all super religious on here or anything like that, but still, just yeah, this movie is. This movie is really, really good. And like I said, Woodward, he gives a great performance, but his character does kind of come off a little unsympathetic at times. And so, yeah, I just think that, this movie is really, really good. And if you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. It's worth it. You hear a lot of hype about this movie. Check it out, because it's worth all the hype that it gets. This movie is fantastic. It's really good. It's, you got like, I don't know if you can see her there, but you got like Britt Ekland there. She looks so good. So yeah, you got some sexy eroticism in this movie. You got Ingrid Pitt. I mean, come on. So you got your eye candy. You got Britt Ekland nudity. You got Ingrid Pitt nudity, which it's a great thing. Trust me. Fantastic music. All the songs in this movie are amazing. So yeah, I say if you come across this, if you can get it, get it. Just my opinion though. If you the best thing to get would be like the 2 disc wooden box set from Anchor Bay. if you could ever find that. I'm always on the lookout for it. But yeah, this here, the final cut on Blu-ray. I would recommend this over the DVD because the DVD is the cut version. This one's a little bit longer. The cut version I think runs like about 88 minutes. This is 94, but anyway, yeah, that's it. I think I've gone on just about long enough. So we talked about, one of my favorite movies, The Wicker Man from 1973. So that's going to do it. Yeah, I think I made all my points. Anyway, if anybody took the time to watch all this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. I do weekly videos. I do movie reviews. I'm doing shelf by shelf on my movie collection. I do haul videos, things like that. So, yeah, please come back again, and hopefully you enjoy my content. This is Sinema77, horror and cult film lover, and one last time, thank you again. Have a good night. Bye bye.